Hey WILDR folks, this week's video is about toe pain while hiking, specifically the pain that comes from your toes jamming into the front of your hiking boots when you are hiking downhill. Now we are going to address long-term solutions, and we're also going to give you a couple tips that you can use if you are going hiking tomorrow and you want to avoid this problem, because certainly foot pain when you're hiking can stop you in your tracks and make the entire day just way less enjoyable. Now the first short-term thing I'm going to talk about is actually how you are walking downhill. Now my top tips for walking downhill when you're hiking are pretty simple, but they are going to change the way that force is going through your body. So my first tip is to shorten your stride. If you're overstriding as you walk downhill, you're more likely to be jamming that foot forward in your hiking boot. My second tip is to make sure you're not blocking the hip. Now, what does that mean? Watch this video when you're walking downhill. You want there to be a slight athletic bend at the hip and the knee and the ankle. We are spreading out our absorption job between all of the joints that we have. If you try and block the hip, you're more likely to lean back a little bit as you go downhill. And if you think about it, that's going to send the foot forward and the toes towards the front of the boot, which is so painful. Instead, let's go with a slight bend at the knee, the ankle, and the hip. That keeps the center of mass more centered over your arch, which means that you're not going to be jamming forward. The other quickest tech tip is to add poles to your hiking arsenal. We are absorbing 5 to 8 times our body weight through those joints as we're walking downhill, so adding poles to the equation means that we now get to also use our upper body, our shoulders, to absorb the load. And while you're walking downhill, I also encourage you to try and move a little bit laterally instead of going straight down. Now what this means is a couple things. If you don't have a trail, you can do a slight zigzag pattern while spreading out your group so that you tread lightly on the land. And if you're on a designated trail, you can try, if there's rocks and stuff, to move a little bit laterally as you're moving downhill. And this is going to stop that jamming forward motion of your foot inside your boot. Now let's back it up a little bit. When you're at the top of that descent, I encourage you to relace your hiking boots. What you want to do here is make sure that your heel is locked back into the back of the boot. And whether your boots are the right size or not, if your heel is allowed to come out of that heel socket, then you're more likely to get the toes pushing against the front of the boot. And I'm going to back up a little bit more. When you are packing your day pack or your overnight pack, make sure that the heaviest, most dense items are close to your body in the backpack as opposed to far away. The farther away a load is from you, the heavier it is. And an often overlooked but incredibly useful tip is to make sure that your toenails are cut before you go out hiking that day. I even know friends that will bring a pair of nail clippers on an overnight hike to make sure that those toenails are kept in shape for every day of their trip. In the medium term, if you're having this toe jamming thing happen and it wasn't fixed by one of those quick tips, then you might want to take a look at your hiking boot. Everyone's feet are different, and so we can't just recommend one hiking boot for everyone, but it's really neat to know all the different ways your hiking boot can change and how that can affect your biomechanics as you're walking. I'm thinking of recording a separate video on that, but I want to know if there's interest. So if there is, pop a comment below. But a list of things that could change in your hiking boot include the heel drop from back to front, the amount of stiffness through the sole, the height of the ankle, the narrowness or width of the forefoot. And believe it or not, having boots that are too small or too big can both lead to your toes jamming forward in your boots. A secondary thing to that is a lot of people have 2 different size feet. So whatever hiking boot you're trying on in store, make sure that you try it on both feet and don't just try it on one and then pay and leave. In the medium term, we can talk about hiking boot fit when it comes to jamming your toes. We can also talk about foot strength, which is my domain, because here at WILDR we do work to get people fit for outdoor adventures of all kinds. Believe it or not, a lot of people neglect their feet. They just pop them into the cast that is a hiking boot, and they forget about the 30 joints and over 100 muscles, ligaments, and tendons that make up the foot and help you walk downhill, dampening the load that goes up through the joints above the ankle and foot. Now, something that I think people don't often realize is that the foot can be strengthened. The first thing I usually get clients to work on is a drill called arch shortening. Now, this drill can feel kind of weird at first, and it might seem like absolutely nothing is happening, but if you stick with it, you're gonna regain control of your foot and all of the muscles inside of it. It's kind of tough to do until you get that brain arch connection figured out. What you wanna do is shorten or heighten the arch, make the foot shorter, without curling the toes or pressing them down too much. So we're really just trying to work on that muscle that goes through the arch of the foot. With my clients, I'll also work on an exercise called a P step down. And what that does is it puts the foot into a position similar to walking downhill. And from that position, you are then going to be mimicking a step down. Now, primarily this works on strengthening our VMO, which is part of our quad muscles. But in addition, it gets us used to having a little bit more load through the forefoot as we're applying force. And if you want to get fit for a once in a lifetime adventure like a hike, then we have programs for you. We have a free PDF 30-day Couch to Summit program that you can download below. We have an 8-week program that gets you ready for a slightly longer hike. And I also work with folks one-on-one if they're gearing up for a huge adventure. Either way, I would love it if you told me your experience with reducing that toe banging pain. And I hope you have a wilder day and get out on the trails soon.